We're going to recording in progress. And okay, let's get right into our topic. I mean, maybe it will be interesting. It's very common. I want to separate into emotional part and factual part. I want to share with you. Give me a share the screen for a second, guys. Okay, let's see. What's going on? Did I share it?
Jonathan, how
I'm just sharing with you something on WhatsApp from the Urban Dictionary. Since the war started, a new word has been added to our lexicon,
really?
and it's Israeled. I've been Israeled when somebody comes in, steals what's mine, and then claims it's his.
I like this word.
And there's 6 or 7 pages of examples of how people have been Israeled out of something. It's the new Jude.
I tell you, it is. I feel the same thing, Jonathan. I mean, I know for a while when I made an aliyah to Israel, I still was kind of missing my comfort of my Atlanta house and the fountain and politeness of the people. Nobody cuts you off in line and everybody smiles. In Israel, it's not always that. But what's going on right now? I mean, I thank God for getting me out of that place.
It's interesting what you're talking about, and it really applies to what we're talking about today, because one of Israel's defenses at The Hague is that the new identity politics and social media has allowed the most extreme use of words and the most extreme anger to enter into our lexicon, and that's a really good example of it.
Yeah. All right, let's see, guys. So first of all, let's get some technical. Let me just take a minute to get some technical things in order. There is an international court of justice, whatever it's called. And it's interesting, when you go to a court normally, like if you are suing somebody or somebody sues you because you stole something, it's usually one judge and just makes decision, something small. If something was serious, in America, for example, there is a jury, 10 juries or 12 juries, whatever. They basically decide if you're guilty or not. And then the judge's job is basically then to say, for that, guilty, 5 years or 3 years or 7 years is something criminal. Basically, that decides. In Israel, it's a little bit different. In Israel, there's no jury. If you have a legal issue, you go to court and there's one judge. And one judge basically decides. And if it's something more serious, then
that's your parliamentary system.
Yeah. And if something more serious, then can be more judges, like in the Torah, essentially, in the Bible, 3 judges or 5 judges or whatever, and basically they make majority.
It's a gift from Ethan.
All right, so they make a majority decision. Let's say 5 judges, 3 rules you're guilty, and 2 not, then you're guilty. All right. In the international court we have here in Hague, and I'm just saying something, I didn't know that before. There's a bunch of countries sign up to this agreement. Israel is one of them. Many countries, like 100 and some countries. All these countries, there are 15 people, there are 15 judges. Those judges come from certain countries. Essentially, they're jury. They're judges and the jury. If they have taken Israel, if they decide in the fate of Israel, if of the 15 people, as I understand it, you correct me, guys, if you see other information, if from 15 countries, let's say 11 say you're guilty and 4 not guilty, you're guilty. Majority does it.
Well, Leib, it's actually a little bit different than that. It's a little bit different. It's not like a court. It's more like the Supreme Court in the United States, where their job is to adjudicate constitutional issues. The only difference here is that there is no constitution. They go by the Geneva Convention and what they call international law, which is a series of United Nations legislation. But they're not really a court. They're not saying guilty. They're saying you have violated international law, which a lot of it is stare decisis. In other words, they simply go by the history of war, the history of what should be done in the Geneva Convention, but they have no actual power. There's no power in the court. It's simply a finger wave like this.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I got it. But basically, also, if they decide, I'm using these terms guilty, not guilty loosely. Basically, when decision, I don't know the better term. Let's say they do it from the 15 judges, 10 saying Israel is not guilty, quote unquote, or whatever, says no, and 5 guys say yes, and it's not guilty. So majority can rule that basically, yes, Israel is committing genocide or not committing genocide. That's just one thing. But secondly, normally in a normal court, like in the Supreme Court, judges usually selected for life. And the judge is supposed to use his integrity to interpret the law. So if the guy, for example, likes communism, but the law says it's a capitalism, then he has to say capitalism, even though his personal opinion might be different. Many times in practice, it's not followed because they have the political judges, but that's just not a proper thing of the system. But in this case, they represent the countries. So when I was talking with my wife, for example, she said, of course they will condemn Israel. They say, I mean, all of them say, because it's all anti-Semitic world against Israel, and they'll be against it. That's her first response. My response was, well, I started looking to it, and I'm thinking, I know that basically Israel doesn't have any friends, unfortunately, in the world, because the world actually very callous and very insensitive. And unfortunately, that's a fact. And unfortunately, the 50 million Jews in the 10 billion people world have to keep the moral compass of the Torah and try to educate the world to become a better place. That's our mission. But the world so far hasn't gotten to this. Mostly, there are some exceptions to that level. And that's why we have a situation of anti-Semitism as we see it. But that's kind of introduction. So if the judge, let's say from France, has to make a decision, he personally may interpret a constitution or whatever, the charter of international charter, in a way that Israel must be found in violation or maybe not in violation. And if he is found, that's what he has to apply. Let's say he makes a decision. But if he makes a decision, there's a ramification on his country. For example, let's say Slovakia might have a project with Israel, but which Israel supplies a lot of technology, maybe some cancer curing things and some special technology. And if Slovakia said, we think Israel is a genocide, Israel can say, well, if that's how you vote, guys, go get the technology with somebody else. So the government of Slovakia will say, listen, guys, you better vote to good to Israel. In other words, they have a political motivation behind their vote. So when I start looking at that, I'm finding, well, doesn't matter how the judge at the table from Germany feels about it. But Germany basically is in support of Israel, and Germany wants to dismiss this case. The guy
right, also, David, it's also a long-term history that these justices vote strictly the way they're ordered to vote by their sovereign countries. That's a long-term knowledge of this court.
Okay, so they don't have the personal feeling. They might feel oppositely to what the country tells them to do, but they basically have to do what the country.
Yeah, it's political. It's strictly, yeah, it's political. It's a political entity of the United Nations.
But it's interesting, the duality, because on one hand, let's say the charter, whatever, I don't even know what the charter is, but whatever charter of the United Nations Court is to do, there are certain laws, certain books, some principles by they go. And the country of Lebanon or Morocco says, don't worry about the charter, just find them guilty and that's it. In other words, they don't have to abide by the charter. They just tell them politically, we just want to torpedo Israel, or America can say, no, we want to let them go, regardless of what the law says. So in that regard,
one thing I find perplexing is that the court is usually ignored. For instance, when they went after Russia for Ukraine, Russia ignored them. They didn't care. And usually Israel ignores it too. But for some reason, this particular issue has got their goat, and Israel's sending some of their top people to defend themselves. And why Israel is so concerned about this issue is not really known. But Netanyahu apparently does care enough to defend Israel.
Well, I personally think that it's a good thing. Everybody says, first of all, emotionally, I feel it's completely sham. It's completely loss of justice in the world, completely insensitive, and I can't believe it. But on the other hand, I think sometimes when you talk to somebody and you don't know where they stand, they don't know where they stand. But in this case, if Brazil says guilty, I mean, using the word guilty just for the sake of term, then we know what relationship between Israel and Brazil is. In the future, if you, Brazil, want something from Israel, go get it from somebody else. In other words, now they have to think twice before they do something to torpedo Israel, because Israel is a small country, but it's not insignificant country. So I think like the relationship between Israel and India are very good. So I don't think India wants to say, well, if we say, just think about it. If you and I in the argument, and then legally I'm wrong, and Bob Dorsky said, Lev, I'm voting that you're wrong. I probably say, Bob, don't come for dinner next time. Even if you're absolutely right. You can ruin relationship with a person by pointing where you stand. It's much easier to stay in the shade and simply say, I want to say nothing, just see what's going on. In this case,
like everything you're saying is very true, and it's really not about the fact, it is about political relationships. The only issue that actually concerns me is that the Geneva Convention prohibits the displacement, this massive displacement of populations. And I'm wondering, how is Israel going to address that issue? Do you guys have any suggestions?
Yeah, I think that Lev, I consider myself a naive person, but from what you've just said, I'm the most cynical, world weary person you could possibly think of. This has got nothing to do with the present complaint. It is totally political. When I count these 15 judges, I think of 13 who are going to be against Israel, and not simply because of the genocide thing. It's going to be about stopping fighting, and as Bob just said about the return of citizens to the homes that they no longer have, and they are going to completely, absolutely, and totally bypass the entire issue of all of the people from Gaza who would like to leave because they're not being allowed to leave. And it's once again, it's the same situation as 1948, where we are having 2 million people now instead of 850,000. Now we got 2 million who are being added to a refugee list, with Israel being specifically labeled as not only the aggressor but the perpetrator of massive abuses of human rights and everything else. I really don't have a clue how come Israel sent representatives to The Hague this time. I think it is a massive mistake, because if we had simply ignored it, we would have come out better than we're going to come out.
You understand, which countries do you think will vote no good? I mean, no guilt, not guilty, whatever it is.
I'm hoping that the U.S. Votes for Israel and not against, and I'm hoping that Australia does as well. The rest of them, I am really not sure. If France votes on behalf of Israel, the next day or the same day, France will be on fire. The whole of France, Paris, we're simply going to be blown up, and the rest, it's already happened.
No, Yonatan, Australia, I think, is a guaranteed vote against Israel. They have not been a friend of Israel for a while.
If you'd said Canada, I would have agreed with you, but I thought that that Australia has, unless they've changed governments while I had COVID, I thought that they had their heads screwed on a little better than that. But
what about right. Germany? Jonathan, what about Germany?
Well, Germany has already come out as a supporter in the court. They're going to present a case for Israel.
What do you think, Jonathan? You don't think they'll vote not guilty, Germany?
I listen, for every country that has more than 9% Muslim population, I think they're going to find themselves in trouble. I think we will find ourselves in trouble.
Do you guys think that sometimes, or that we have come to the point of cutting the Gordian knot, meaning that decisive action is necessary to resolve the issue, and Israel should drive the 2 million Arabs out of Gaza.
No, unless we really need the real estate to grow more tomatoes and flowers, and we don't have any foreign workers to do that. The driving out of Gazans from Gaza would be met with, I think, universal opprobrium. I think that we would be really cooking our goose if we did that.
Well, Jonathan, how are you going to re-educate this massive population of terrorists?
I read an article about that. It was in Arutz Sheva this afternoon, one of the op-eds, that this is now the time to denazify. Just as the U.S. went into German schools and rewrote the curriculum and rewrote the German Constitution, and in Japan as well, they went in and they changed the rules because they were the winners, and they didn't make any apologies for it at all. I understand that the situation is somewhat different in that that Gaza isn't across the Pacific Ocean from us, but I personally, I don't have a solution. I wish I did. I'm very glad that I'm not in the Knesset, and I don't have to decide what's going to be done with all this, because I don't have a solution.
Bob,
with that much hatred.
Bob, which countries do you think will go guilty or not guilty, in your opinion?
Well, I think Germany will go not guilty because they've already come out as a friend of the court, and the United States,
a friend of the court.
Yeah, Germany has applied as a not friend of the court, a friend of the defendant. Germany has already applied to present a case for Israel.
Also, Germany, U.S., what else?
I can't say for. I don't know.
In front of us.
France has not been friendly to Israel in a long time. China will not be for Israel. These other countries, I have no idea.
Hold on, let's do it. Let's do quick. I'm just curious. I'm making the statistics. Let's go down the list. Just say guilty or not guilty. Somalia.
Guilty.
Guilty.
China.
Guilty.
That's only for Bob. Yours would no, Jonathan. Yours is only, you said only United States and Germany. No, I'm sorry. You only said United States and Australia.
As not guilty. Okay, I can add Germany is not guilty. The rest of them, I think, will vote as guilty.
Germany, okay, well, let me change Germany for you. I'll change your vote to now 3 to 12. Okay, Bob. No, Somalia guilty, China guilty, Slovakia.
It's uncertain. They may want to go along with the United States.
Okay, so NG, no guilty. France.
France probably guilty. Jonathan's right. They're Muslim population.
Morocco.
Guilty.
Morocco will
no, Jonathan, just Bob. We have your vote over Jonathan.
Morocco will go with France.
So guilty. Okay, Brazil.
Guilty.
Uganda.
I don't know.
Yes, I'd say I think you think guilty. Let me put I put word in your mouth. Guilty. India.
India, I'm really hoping. I'm hoping not guilty.
Okay.
But they're surrounded by Muslim nations.
You have to know that India has a small Muslim population. It fights Muslim nations, and also they have tremendous military contracts with Israel.
Okay, Jamaica.
Well, Jamaica will be not guilty.
Australia.
I don't know about that.
You don't think Jamaica will go along with the United States?
I don't think Jamaica is connected enough with the states to need to kowtow.
You may be right.
So Bob, are you non-guilty for Jamaica or not?
I don't know. I don't really know. I think it's a good argument for both.
Okay.
Whatever.
Are you biased towards non-guilty or them or guilty?
I'm biased towards guilty, I guess, for Jamaica.
I'm guilty. Okay. Australia.
I still think that they're gonna vote guilty. I still think, but I'm hoping to be wrong.
Russia.
Russia, definitely guilty.
Lebanon.
Guilty.
Japan.
Again, you're asking impossible questions. I don't know.
No, what do you think? Just guess.
Non-guilty. I don't know.
Whoa.
Okay, so
You know
now,
what?
No
Japan is
reason.
I'll tell you something. Japan's very interesting because it has had tremendous pro-Israel demonstrations in Tokyo over the last few weeks. What's very surprising. Jonathan, don't give up on them yet.
you know something, Bob? You came very similar to Jonathan. Jonathan was 12-3. 12-3. And you are 9-6. So you're a little bit more towards balance, but you're close to Jonathan. I tell you what, I did today you guys basically, roughly speaking, you're mildly, you're slightly pushing Israel to guilty. Jonathan significantly, no doubt. Stephen Putterman, that our relative in Ranana, said it will be 5-10 not guilty. David, King David Moran from Beersheba, he said 7-8. In other words, he was non-guilty by just one vote. Well, almost even for him. My wife said 11-4. My wife said almost the same as Jonathan, guilty overwhelmingly. And I said 5-10 non-guilty. And the reason, and I said, just if you guys are interested, I said the ones who say non-guilty will be China, believe it or not, France, even though I hear what Jonathan's saying, and Brazil, United States, India, Jamaica, Australia, Russia, Japan, and Germany. And my point is because this country, as far as I know, I mean, I'm not an expert in international relationship, need Israel. They need Israelis' cure for cancer. They need Israelis' technology.
Russia needs Israel?
No. Russia. I said Russia non-guilty because
Not guilty. Okay.
non-guilty because Russia has a lot of Russians here in Israel. 40% of Israel, and Russia probably doesn't want to piss them off.
But Lev, Russia is very angry with Israel about their non-committal approach to Ukraine.
That is
Yeah.
that is
They're
true.
furious, and they're quite sure that Israeli armaments have been received and are being used against Russian troops. I think that
Even though that's not true.
yeah.
It's not true, but I have to tell you guys, I share. I know. I think in this case, I differ for you guys, which is okay. I respect your opinion. I don't have no sympathy for Ukraine. I think Ukraine is a Nazi state, and Russia is absolutely right. But I'm not a friend of Russia. I mean, I live in Israel, not in Russia. But I think Putin and Russia are completely justified what they're doing, and I think Israel could be. I understand Israel has to play. We're a small country. We have to be careful not to openly say that we don't like what Russia does, not say what we don't like Ukraine does. We understand. We have to be political. But I think Israel made a little bit more statements towards disapproving of Russia to the point Russia said, well, if that's how you think, then, if you don't be friends, then we don't be friends. Israel, unfortunately, behaved not good towards Russia.
Do you notice that in our discussion, it's all about money, relations, politics? It's true that the World Court has no written constitution to go by. It's not even obligated to go by precedents. It's not obligated to anything, and that most of the decisions are based on very nebulous terms. And it is truly a political body. There's no such thing as laws of war, and there's no such thing as precedents. And each country will simply vote, or each justice will vote simply by what's best for their country. And the way you're doing it, Lev, is correct, because what we're talking about is what's going to happen.
It's a big sham. It's a big injustice. I agree. But let me ask you this technical question. I don't know, guys. Let's say whatever the process is it supposed to take months, weeks, years, centuries?
Years. It's supposed to take years, except that South Africa is making a request for an early decision simply to call for a ceasefire. But the actual decision will not be handed down for a long, long time.
But you're saying they can make a decision on ceasefire?
That's what South Africa is requesting, but they haven't answered them yet.
Oh.
And I think that in order to look good, that's exactly what they are going to end up saying.
Okay, if I want to go to court to sue my neighbor for $100, it will take in Israel 3 years. For me, just me and my neighbor, it takes 3 years.
I sued a contracting company because they left a channel across the road, and it took out my whole front end of my car. And the judge found them guilty, and it was something like between 6,000 and 8,000 shekels for repairs.
Mhm.
And that's 15 years ago. I haven't seen the money since. Doesn't matter what the court decides.
It any better. It's no different in Union City, New Jersey, because I sued for my roof, and I'm still looking for the company.
No, but it's interesting, you understand, I'm not talking about that. I agree that after the decision is made, for 15 years they didn't have money. I'm talking about even if I sue the guy for $100, even for 3 years, I wouldn't have any decision. They were asking me to file so many papers, and I didn't sign it with a blue ink, and it's supposed to be on the right side. I didn't put a stamp, and this was not notarized, and it was done on Tuesday instead of a Thursday. That process will take years. That's just that.
No,
And this is international court decided a major thing, not $100, and they would decide in a couple of weeks. I would think I agree with you. It's supposed to take like 10 years, 20 years,
my
100
son
years.
lived in Israel. My son lived in Israel for 2 years, and he said to me, "Dad, you have no idea how dysfunctional this country is."
But even this international court will decide yes. Let's say 11 against 4, Israel is guilty, and then what? As an action, we'll send the victorious army of Ivory Coast to Tel Aviv to send them the warrant to stop the war. And the 5 Marines from Ivory Coast and Monaco will come from Tel Aviv boats, all 6 of them. They come into the headquarters of the Israeli army and say, "You're all under arrest. Surrender your weapons." I mean,
Well, you know, the real problem with a guilty verdict is that it's going to increase the already shocking international level of anti-Semitism. Some of these more brutal countries will try to arrest Israelis within their borders. Some of these more brutal countries will try and do economic damage to Israel. And all it does is, it's like there's an expression, by 1,000 pinpricks. In other words, it's just another little piling on against the Jews in an already very troublesome world that we live in right now as Jews.
I actually think
we might find ourselves arrested, as we're in transit through Dubai.
Or even through England. You have no idea.
But I think I see it much more positive than you guys, because I think in reality, I mean, my own nature, I don't like, there's a saying, hate me or love me. I don't take indifference. I would rather know where you stand than kind of beat around the bush. So I want to tell England, are you my friend or not? If you vote against me, I don't need to go to London, but you don't come to Tel Aviv. And if you want anything from Israel, any technology, screw you, goodbye. I think in a way it's good when it's like what we are now witnessing light against darkness. This is not Israel against Hamas. This is not Israel against Palestinians. This is light against darkness. And when it happens, I think what's happening is exactly as a Torah saying, as a Bible saying, the end of the day, so to speak, we are witnessing. The light, it's not, before it was a mixture, tohu vavohu. And now it's like Moses says when the golden calf, who is with Hashem, who is with God, come to my side. And Levites came. This is the time to choose.
Do you guys know who Piers Morgan is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably England's most prominent journalist. And last week, to my surprise, he's a Roman Catholic. He said, I am deeply disturbed. He said, there are only 15 million Jews in the world, and what's going on now is something that is deeply, deeply frightening. And for him to recognize that across the line to a Roman Catholic, first of all, I was very impressed that he said that, but it also means that it's not just that we're hysterical, that smart people elsewhere are beginning to realize that there's a really troublesome time for the Jews.
But it's also a revealing time for the Jews. We cannot lose because God is on our side. There's no question. I mean, that's my view. The opponents will say no. God is on on the other side. I think it's. I also see that ultimately it all will work out. There will be peace. Palestinian people will be happy. Everything will be fine. We all get along. But we haven't gotten to this stage yet. Right now, we're going through a dark turbulence. But that turbulence will end. Maybe it'll take weeks, maybe take months, maybe years. I don't know. But it's coming. Ultimately, it'll be good. But this is time to take sides. It's no longer time to say, well, speak with two corners of your mouth. On one hand, I come to Israel for the beach. On the other hand, I will tell, okay, enough. State your position. If you're not with us, go.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. But luckily, the one thing like we talk about is there will be no decision by this court in the near future, I don't believe. And I think that South Africa's request for a rapid judgment will be rejected.
I think so too, Bob. But I think it also shows South Africa exposed itself, because South Africa is a very, very corrupt, one of the most corrupt governments right now, unfortunately. And now
I want to ask you guys a question as two Israelis. I have a lot of friends who are going to Israel on very short trips to so-called support the Jews of Israel. You know, like friends of mine are going on a 1-week trip, like I don't know what they call it, a mission to support Israel. You guys consider that a good thing, or do you consider them to be a nuisance?
I think it's one of these things like online petitions. It's a feel-good thing, and it's very nice to have your support, but actually we don't really need you. So I'm happy they're coming. I don't want to insult them. I don't want to hurt them, but they're doing it for themselves, not for us. I don't think it makes any bit of difference. I have a neurologist friend. He's an emeritus professor from Johns Hopkins University. He's 85 now. He's been retired for many years, and he volunteered, and he's come to Israel. He's now finishing up 8 weeks volunteering as a neurologist at a rehabilitation hospital in Jerusalem. He's brought in like 50 years of experience to help treat Israelis from chronic injuries, from acute injuries, Arabs, you name it. But I think that is support. I think the people that are coming to Sarel to stuff parachutes into sacks and stuff, take some work. I think those are worthwhile things. But an 8-day mission to talk to a couple of politicians, that's a waste of my time.
I appreciate your honesty, but I'll keep it to myself. I won't tell them.
Guys, by the way, I just want to let you know, just of interest, from the 6 people I asked, 3 of us plus my wife, from David, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 3 said guilty and 3 not guilty, of which my wife was extremely on the guilty side, and so is Jonathan. My wife and Jonathan are on the most extreme side. Me on the most liberal side, not guilty. Bob is kind of roughly in the middle, a little bit guilty, but not very strongly. And David is right on the borderline of not guilty. So it's interesting. From 6 people, the opinions vary for extreme yes, from extreme no, anywhere in the middle. I would expect
there's always hope.
it will be more uniform. I thought it would be more. If you ask me before, I thought everyone would say it's like 13-2, like one saying, 32 guilty. I thought that's what people say. And it's kind of amazing that it's not like that. And because people are realizing there's a political things involved, not only how I feel. Yes, I really think Israel, Jamaica. Well, I really think Israel is guilty. But that means I'm not going to have Israeli tourists. Well, I'm not going to have tourists in Jamaica. I don't think it's a good thing. No guilty. So those type of things I thought will influence significant decisions.
Hey guys, I've been to Jamaica. It is beautiful. So if you ever get a chance, get over there. Show them how nice Israelis are.
Bob, my wife is Jamaican. She was born there.
Oh, she really?
Yeah.
So have you been to Jamaica?
and we were there as well. And to hear Jamaica is now 98% black. And we were in a gated community in the north for a week and a half. We wanted to visit Kingston, and our driver, who was about 6'7", a massive man, he looks at us. You see the whites all around his eyes. He's going, "You want to go to kill some?" He doesn't call it Kingston. He calls it kill some. He says, "We got to be back before dark." That's when's dark. 2:30.
Well, when we were in Jamaica, we had a walled community, and it was a good time. Plenty of beach.
Oh yeah.
Beaches
marvelous for tourists. They need the money, but it's a very corrupt government. They had a massive hurricane with it just flattened the country and destroyed the roads. They got phenomenal international aid to repair the infrastructure, and all of the money disappeared.
Wow, that's terrible.
There was no repair of the roads, potholed.
Sounds like Gaza. Sounds like Gaza, Jonathan.
Does your wife have any family left there?
No, one friend, and she was in her 70s when we visited. That was the person we visited in Kingston. The rest of the family, her father helped pull the rest of the family out of Jamaica. Most of them went to Canada. A few went to Central America.
Wow. So there's no Jews left there, I bet, right?
Oh no, there's one person who curates the synagogue. It's a Portuguese synagogue with white sand floor. I mean, you were there, you visited, you saw it.
Yeah.
Beautiful synagogue.
Yeah, I went. Yeah.
I don't think they have a wedding.
We went to a wedding there. I think there's one rabbi in the whole country.
Guys, we only have 20 seconds. I think we have to wrap on that. But for next Tuesday at 8:00, to log in, any particular topic, Bob? You mentioned the topic, but we covered this topic before. So if anybody has any interest in something, just let us know. Until then,
Okay.